Hey everyone, StephanieRobilio here, licensed clinical social worker, published author, and the chief clinical officer at Agape Behavioral Healthcare, and you are tuning into the StephanieRobilio podcast, your go-to resource for transforming your mental health and overall wellness. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the StephanieRobilio podcast. I am so honored and so excited to share that today I have my very first guest, the beautiful Isabel, joining me. This is something that I've been wanting to do for so long, and I set the intention that this was the year. So here we are, and today I just feel incredibly honored and grateful that I have Isabel here to join us on the conversation of what it means to really lead with an open heart. I met Isabel through my work at Agape Behavioral Healthcare. Isabel started as an intern, and she was just truly magical, a gem from the beginning, that we hired her before she even graduated. And here we are years later. And recently she came to me and she just shared that she feels I've made such a positive impact on her journey, specifically because I lead with an open heart. So we're going to talk about that today. And here's Isabel.
Thank you so much, Steph, for having me here. I'm so honored to be your first guest on this podcast. That's amazing.
So excited.
I feel like just as you're sharing that, I'm reflecting on my journey at Agape. I can't believe it all started with me as an intern, and now we're here today.
It's crazy.
But I really just want to take this opportunity to share that, yes, you have made such a positive impact because, you know, they really say lead by example is the best way to make an impact. And I really saw how you led with an open heart right from the beginning. I remember, one of my first experiences at Agape was seeing how you set the tone for the day by starting off the day with a morning meditation. And I was just mind blown how that was such a big priority and value that, everybody participated in that. And I also just saw that you were such a light and also provided that as a leader, which I thought was really cool. I hadn't seen that before. So yeah, I really, really appreciated that.
Oh my goodness, amazing. I really feel like I owe it to the mentors in my life. I can remember my very first experience being a therapist. I was new to the field of substance abuse, full transparency. I was so afraid of it, right? I'm like, who am I to be stepping into this arena? How will I relate? How will I connect? Because I had this false narrative of what it meant to be a therapist and what it meant to relate. And so I really thank my mentor back then because I remember she led with an open heart. She led with love. She led with light. And I was so taken back by it. I'm like, who is this person showing up to work every day? She was holding space for us to meditate.
Wow.
It was me and 14 other clinicians, right? Yeah. In a circle, meditating, just unbelievable. And so I remember sitting there going, gosh, she's giving me inspiration. And I just kind of pulled little things that really felt true to me. Wow. And I've been carrying it with me ever since.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I know for me, in the past, I always felt like I had to be somebody at work, and then that was separate from my personal life. Like I was me in my personal life, and then I had to sort of like put on a mask at work, or I had to be a certain way at work. And you really gave me this permission to show up as my authentic self, that I'm allowed to just be me. I know for me in the past that I always felt like I had to sort of wear a mask when it came to work. Like I felt like my separate life was different, and then my work life was also different. And that led to so much burnout because I felt like I had to I had to be someone else. And I know that ever since I've worked at Agape, you've always really encouraged me to be my authentic self and show up just as me. And not only did you encourage me to do that, but that was also something that was so welcomed and rewarded that it's just made all the difference for me.
It's such a powerful lesson in life when we realize that our ultimate job is to find a way to come back home to the truth of who we are and honor who we are and show up as we are. Because at the end of the day, sure, most people, if we're honest with each other, myself included, at work we used to be one way, at home we're this way, with this friend we're this way. Like we put on all these different masks depending on who, what, where, when, why, right? But at the end of the day, as you said, that is exhausting. Yeah. It's definitely a path to burnout because it requires energy and effort to show up as something that you're not. Yeah. But what I've learned in my own personal experience is that when we can honor the truth of who we are and then show up as the truth of who we are, it really takes no effort because you're just being who you are, right? And so it doesn't mean that you won't ever experience burnout. Sure, of course, that's the natural part of life. It's going to happen, especially in the work that we do. But I think that there's something to be said about honoring authenticity, even in the moments where it's uncomfortable. Right? Honoring that.
No, that's so true. And we also spend so much time in the workplace. Like it's where we spend the majority of our time. So being comfortable to just be yourself, it makes all the difference.
The one thing that I've learned too is that when a person does allow themselves to show up at work and be authentic, and having this space, right? Feeling like you're in a safe environment to be who you are, that supports optimal mental health. Because think about it, if a person has to come to work and you have to pretend you're somebody you're not, and you have to walk on eggshells, and you have to put on this mask and this mask, that is exhausting to one's soul. It'll literally drain your cup so fast.
100%.
And it leads to anxiety. It can perpetuate the cycles of depression, insecurities, right? It just takes everything out of you when you're not who you are.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think so many people don't realize that there is another option. Like there's actually another way that we can show up in the work world, right? It doesn't have to be in this way where you have to be something different than what you are. But at the same time, I do think people are looking for that guidance and looking for that like role model, right? To sort of like lead in that way. So I would love to hear from you in terms of what do you feel are the main ingredients to lead with an open heart?
Yeah, I love this question so much. I really think it's one, owning the work that you have to do, right? Having the courage to look within self and break through the walls of fear, overcome the obstacles that have once kept me in my own cycles of self-limiting beliefs, my own cycles of anxiety, of depression. Like I had to work through all of that so that I could show up. So doing your own inner work, getting on the path of authenticity, which means you have to do your work to get there, right? You have to heal from your own trauma so that you can return home to the truth of who you are. And I think that if you can do those things and then every single day choose to show up as a courageous person, right? Choose to show up and be able to hold space for those that you serve and see the truth in them, welcome the truth in them, be curious about who they are and their unique gifts, right? I think if you can stay committed to that, you can really lead with an open heart, because an open heart means that I'm doing my work, that I feel safe to show up with an open heart. Had I not done my work, I would show up very limited. I would be guarded. I would be protecting my heart, right? Out of fear of being hurt, fear of being judged, fear of rejection, fear of not being liked in the workplace. There's all these narratives that we all have. And so I think that if you have the courage to face your own truth, then it's very, very easy to lead with an open heart.
Oh, yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think it just is a reminder that it all starts within, you know, so the importance of being able to look at those barriers that are preventing you from being yourself. And then if you have the courage to do that, it's really just expanding that to all other areas of your life. And I remember, you know, as you were just speaking, one of the things that I've learned from you that have been so powerful is, you know, even if fear is present, you can still show up, you know, because by not doing something because fear is present, it really just perpetuates the anxiety around that thing. So that has been so influential and so powerful, because I've stepped into these new roles and new abilities, not because I thought I was able to do it. I really doubted myself, but because that doubt was there, the fear was there, and I still did it anyways, you know? And that's when I was able to say, okay, I'm actually capable of a lot more than I thought was possible. I'm actually way more powerful than I thought. And again, it's not because all that self-esteem or belief was there. It's actually because I just did it anyways, you know?
Exactly. It's the action, right? Yeah. And every time you take action, meaning, okay, yes, I feel fear and I'm still going to show up and do this thing, whatever that thing is, you literally send a message to your body that you're capable of doing it. Yeah. And your body remembers everything, right? So then the next time you have fear and the next time you show up, the body's like, oh, I've been here before, I can do this, right? That memory that's stored within us. And I think that's so powerful, because if we let fear keep us stuck, we'll never take that step. And then we just stay in the cycle of fear, and it literally holds us back in almost every single area of our life. And not to mention, it is a huge disservice to the world to not show up.
Yes. Right. And I think
to yourself and the world.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to how doing this work of, one, looking within, and then two, showing up for other people, it's the most selfless thing you can do, you know, because it has a domino effect on everybody around you. Steph, I also know that one thing we both kind of relate to is how people have come to me. I know people have also come to you and kind of questioned, you know, wait, are you being for real? Are you really, is that positivity real? And I think, there is definitely a lot of toxic positivity just in general around the world, right? Like in social media and the work culture. But there's also genuine, authentic positivity. So what do you say about what is the difference, do you think, between this toxic positivity and then just being genuine and having positivity as something that you value?
Sure, I love this. So I think it's one thing if a person, especially in the workplace, is like, this is a positive work environment. We have to show up positive. That's the standard. That's the bar, nothing below it.
Yeah.
That to me is very toxic because we're humans and we all have stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's things going on in our personal life that might be disrupting how we show up, and we should be able to show up as we are. I think that it can become very problematic if there's a standard that everybody has to be perfect, because then we're not being true again, right? And I keep going back to authenticity, but that's so important to highlight because we're not meant to be at 100% every single day. We're not a robot, right? And let's be real, in a time and age where AI is taking over and technology is taking over, as genius and brilliant as it is, we're still hardwired for genuine connection. Yeah. And I think that if we place this standard that we have to show up and we have to be perfect, then we're just robotic, right? So to me, that's when it becomes a problem. The difference in being positive in an authentic way, to me, what that means is that you truly are giving the message that you are allowed to show up as you are. Yeah. And yes, we value positivity. We appreciate positivity. And you can still show up and be honest if today's just not your best.
Exactly.
Right?
I love it. I love it. I know for me, when I felt like I had this standard of, I have to show up and be perfect, or I have to show up and everything has to be okay, that's exactly what led to burnout. That's exactly what was not sustainable. And now it's like, well, if I know I'm having a bad day and if I can be honest about that, there's this relief.
Yes.
And with that relief comes lightness. And with that lightness, naturally, you have a more sort of hopeful outlook.
Something that I've learned throughout my journey of healing and self-discovery, and specifically being in a leadership role, is that there was once a version of me that dimmed my light. My light actually made me very uncomfortable. And I could almost cry talking about this part. I'm going to cry, but that's just the reality of it. There was a time in my journey that I became aware that I have a light. We all have a light. Yeah. I just became very in touch with mine. And I say this humbly, but I realized that I have an energy that's very special. And it's a gift, and I thank God for it every day. I think it's what allows me to connect with people and help. And early in my career, I just found myself really dimming that out of fear of judgment, the fear of people thinking, who does she think she is? And it kept me small for a long time. And again, I thank my amazing therapist and mentor, because she just reminded me that it is a disservice to not only my own soul's evolution and healing, but the people that I lead, the community, and the world, And so I think I had to really look at that, and thank God for therapists, I had to really look at that and overcome the fear. Yeah. And I've learned that overcoming fear doesn't mean you did check 1, check 2, check 3, fear's gone.
Totally.
Right? It's a daily practice and it's a process. And every single day I recommit to that practice and that process. And it's what allows me to show up. And what I've learned is that in me showing up, bringing the light that I am and owning my energy, no matter how big it is sometimes, it inspires the next person. Right?
That's me.
It inspires the next person. And how cool, because think about it. What if I never allowed myself to show up and take up space and shine my light? Yeah. It might not have ever sparked it in you to show up, right? And so it's a disservice. Yeah. I could have blocked you, not even knowing. Yeah. Especially in a leadership role, because ultimately, let's be real, when you're in a leadership role, people tend to follow. That's the whole point, right? They're following your guidance. And so for me, I want every single person to step into their power, to lean into their light, and to turn it on and make it very, very bright.
Beautiful. What a beautiful message. And thank you for sharing that, because I remember, I think this was just before I had started working full-time at Agape. I was transitioning from intern to primary therapist. And there was all this self-doubt, all of these insecurities were coming up. And I remember I had a conversation with you in your office. Tears were involved, of course. And I remember, kind of talking exactly about this, how, I feel so much inside, but I don't know if it was that I'm afraid to show it or I was afraid to show it. I just didn't know necessarily how to show it, because, what you just said rings so true to me, of this fear of people wondering or asking, who does she think she is? That was like my main fear, that people were going to think, oh, well, who does she think she is to do all these things and be that way and like shine so bright, And that does keep you really small. And I remember through that conversation with you, it was the realization that if I don't tap into this, then it's going to continue manifesting as anxiety, and I'm just going to miss out on so many opportunities that are meant for me.
That's exactly right. And the truth is, if we feel something, there's a reason why we feel it, right? Like that desire has been placed on your heart for a reason. And I think that, yeah, of course, we want to stay in what's familiar, right? Like we find comfort somehow, even in the chaos and the fear and the anxiety and the depression and all of it. Like most of us, if we're honest with each other, we get so comfy in that space because we can usually predict what's going to come next. And if we can predict something, then we feel safe. And at the end of the day, we all just want to feel safe and secure. But what I've learned is that, to speak to your point, if you ignore the desires that have been placed on your heart for a reason, they will continue to manifest as all the stuff that you just named. And you will feel dysregulated and you will find yourself repeating the same unhealthy patterns. It'll be very difficult to get into a new way of living and being and thinking and feeling because you're ignoring, again, the truth of who you are, right? Yeah. To me, when we feel that stuff inside, that's literally your body going like, knock, knock, like, hello, are you going to listen to me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to guide you.
Yeah.
Please listen to me. Yeah. Trust the guidance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Trust it.
That's why it's so cool, so beautiful, so amazing that we get to be in this place now to show other people, like through our job, that it is possible, and that's why I walk into work every single day thinking that it's such an honor to be able to do this, because I've walked through this, and I continue to walk through it every single day. But I think that initial hurdle of like, am I going to walk through this door or not? Like after you open that door and you walk through it, everything just starts to open up for you. And like you said, doesn't mean that fear is not going to be there, that insecurities are not going to be there, but everything just starts unfolding in a way that you feel guided,
Yes, and we're always being guided. Yeah. The question is just going to come down to, are we aware enough to see the guidance, right? Like you have to be aware. We're given signs literally all day. Our body's always communicating to us, but we have to be aware enough to notice it and then trust it and then take that step and then the next step and the next step.
Yeah.
You know?
I love it. Yeah. One thing I've also learned is like, I always thought that leadership was something like separate to me, right? And then actually in my own therapy, I was asked the question of, how am I my own leader?
I love that.
And then this completely changed the game for me, that I get to show up as my own leader. So I get to affirm myself, I get to validate myself, and I get to lead my own life. Like I have agency over my own life. So as I started showing up as a leader for myself, then this opportunity just came about where now I get to really be a leader at Agape. And it's shown me that I am capable, and the limiting beliefs, like, maybe they still come about here and there, but they're there. I don't pay attention to them, because I'm doing it.
And for the record, if anybody can lead with love and light, it's her. Like, truly, like you blow my mind every single day. It's amazing to watch you in action. Like, I could cry thinking about this too. Like, I'll never forget when I first met Izzy, just like side note here, I have to say this. She was an intern, and the way she treated and greeted her clients from the moment they arrived all the way through their treatment to the very end, I never will forget her saying like, this is their ceremony and the entrance has to be big and the closing has to be big. And you would just go over the top. And now you've taken that same energy and that same message and you're doing it in your leadership with the clinical team. And to see you and the ladies, it's just like amazing the way you all are so connected. You're so inspiring. And I just think it's incredible how you recognize that in me. It inspired you and now you're doing it.
Aww,
right? Like it's so cool, the full circle.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I really feel like, it's learning from you, seeing that it's so possible, and then taking that and then figuring out what that means for me.
Yes.
How do I show up in my authentic way for other people? And it's just been such a cool experience. And I think I see that in other areas of my life now too, that ability to just be so present, for other people, and also just to be myself. Like it just comes a lot easier now. And, I always ask myself, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
If I'm myself, which before would be the fear to be myself, what's the worst thing that can happen? That somebody doesn't like it?
Right.
That somebody says, who does she think she is? That is, okay, at the end of the day, so what?
Right. Yes.
Because the feeling of showing up authentically is so beautiful. Like, I'm not willing to give that up anymore.
No. Absolutely not. And if you
willing to give it up.
For anyone listening, if you ever find yourself in an environment where you have to compromise your authenticity, get out. Leave the person, the place, the thing, the situation. And I really mean that, because at the end of the day, nobody can take that away from you. We can give it away by being someone that we're not, but nobody can take our truth, right?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, so powerful. So Steph, just because I'm sure there's so many people that wonder, how do I start? Because this probably resonates with so many people who are finding themselves stuck in a place that they know they have it in them, but they don't know where to start. What would you say is the first step to encourage someone to really start tapping into that authenticity and into that light? And what would you say is the first step?
One, if you have the awareness that the light is there and you want to tap into it, I would encourage you to just take baby steps. What is one area in your life, whether it's in your personal life or your work life or even on your own, where you can practice being authentic? It sounds silly, but even standing in front of the mirror and just practicing, what would you say if you were leaning into your light? How would you stand? How would you sit? How would you dress? Right? Starting to get
so powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. Explore, be curious. But I think starting small, because if you do it once and then you do it again and then you do it again, then you do it again, next thing you know, you're like, oh wait, I'm just doing it, right? I'm just doing it. But anything else in life, it really is a practice. You have to practice it until it feels, oh, this is just a skill that I automatically have. Authenticity is just what I do.
So true. So true. I love that. As you said that, I was thinking it's let me try it on.
Yes.
Let me try on what it would be like to show up authentic, and what would it feel like?
Yeah. And as you try it on, you're allowed to adjust. You're allowed to say, oop, I don't really like this. Let me try this. Be playful with it. I think having fun is really, really important. Being authentic doesn't have to be that serious. I know
great.
For me, even when I first started in leadership, I used to think I have to come in, I have to be like this and walk like this and talk like this and respond like this. And it's no, it's really not that serious. Just be you.
Yeah, I love that so much. Something that's been coming up recently for me is, when you're on this journey, right, on the healing journey, on the path of being your authentic self, at the beginning it can feel very heavy and very deep, because you are sort of facing a lot of those limiting beliefs, sometimes, a lot of times past traumas, things that have led you to a place where you block the authenticity. So it can feel very deep. But as you sort of go through that, something that I start to realize too is that, healing can also be fun.
Yes.
There's also so much beauty that can come in the joy, in the lightness, and that in itself is healing. It doesn't all have to be the depths of it, It's also in the lightness of it.
Yes.
So something that I appreciate so much in our workspace is that we also make room to just crack jokes and, just to have a few laughs together at lunch. And I think that's so, so, so valuable.
It really is. I think it's about the integration, right? When you make a commitment to heal, to recover, to work towards leading with love, whatever it is that you're working towards, again, it's not a checklist, right? It's an integration of all areas of your life. And you do it simply by having that, it's really frequent awareness. You must be aware almost moment to moment. And then applying action as you're going, right? If you can apply awareness and action, you can create change, right? But it's that integration of it. It's not, oh, I have to do this and then do this and then do this. It's no, I just get to be this.
Exactly.
I just get to be this way. And I would also share that if you're somebody who this is resonating with you and you're really at a turning point in your life, and whether it's you're working towards healing, you're on the path of self-discovery, maybe you really want to take a leadership position, but you're fearful, whatever it is, I would encourage you just to give yourself permission to start where you are. Remind yourself that your best is always enough. If we could do better, then we would do better. And trust the unfolding of your life. Like, I've learned that every single step somehow is leading to the next. Like, I never thought that I'd be where I am today. I didn't sit here and envision one day I'd be overseeing multiple clinical programs, 3 different facilities. Like, that wasn't something on the wish list. Like, it just happened, you know, and it happened because I gave myself permission to trust the process and to just be who I am. And I could not be more grateful and excited for where I am in life today. You know, like, it's an honor to do the work that I get to do every day, not only with our community, but with an amazing team, amazing leadership team, the best. Like, thank you to leadership. They inspire me to continue to lead with love. I love you all, like, big love. And it's just remarkable. Yeah. It's remarkable what can happen in your life when you trust.
Yeah, I love it. So powerful. And also, you know, as you were saying that, the importance of celebrating the small wins, you know, because I think when you have big goals, those are so great, but also noticing what's happening in the process, you know. Right. This is so funny. I remember I always felt like for the group sessions that I was facilitating, I always felt like I had to go in really prepared, you know. And then I remember the first time I went into a group session and I just got a feel for what was going on in the room, and I just spoke about what came to the heart, and it was a beautiful, beautiful process group, and it was one of the most powerful groups I had facilitated, because I just felt what was going on in the room and I went in unprepared. And I said, this is such a key moment for me because it's allowing me to trust myself. Yes. You know, so yeah, it was a small moment, but it was such a powerful moment. And I allowed myself to acknowledge that, okay, I can trust myself.
Absolutely. And the reality is, we do know what we most need. We do know what to say. We know how we want to feel. Like, all that truth and that wisdom is within us. The mind gets in the way, right? So part of the work is, again, having that awareness. And when you find yourself falling into the tricks of the mind, notice it and don't let your mind play tricks on you. Like, you know, like, don't let your mind play tricks on you, because it will. We want to be safe at all costs. Like, that's the human deal. We want to be safe. So again, I think having that awareness and knowing that you're allowed to start as many times as you need to.
So true. It doesn't have to look perfect. It will never look perfect. So might as well just embrace it as it is. And like you said, start where you are. Okay, Steph, before we wrap up, I have one big question for you. So what does it mean for you to return back home to yourself as a leader?
Oh my goodness, you're gonna make me cry again. To return back home to myself as a leader is really to acknowledge and celebrate the little girl that is still very much alive within me. Like, I owe it to her, you know? I'm gonna cry again. If you know me, like, you know this is what I do. I cry.
It is true.
I cry a lot. Yeah, I owe it to the little girl in me, my inner child. And that's really what it means. I think that the more I can connect to her, the more I can show up with an open heart and lead with love. Like, she deserves it.
She does.
She deserves it. Yeah. So I'm doing it for her. And as a result, I get to help and inspire people every single day. And what a privilege. What a privilege.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me to have this conversation with you, Steph.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to do it again. I love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you found today's episode to be insightful and inspiring, drop me a review so together we can help the next person, and come connect with me on social at StephanieRobilio and find all of my books on Amazon. Until the next episode, stay mindful and always remember the power that lives inside of you.